Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone. I've made a few notes, so I think we can just start with that, and then, of course, everybody, please
Definitely.
contribute and chime in anytime you'd like.
What
So,
page? Richie,
uh, so
excuse
we're doing the Parsha as Rabbi Schwartz says, what Parsha are we doing? It's
me.
Pekudei, and it's 564 in the Eitz Chaim Chumash. 564 Pekudei. And so this is the last Parsha in Exodus. Now, Exodus has 11 Parshiot, and the first six we know well because it's called the greatest story ever told. It's the story of the Exodus from Egypt, of the Hebrew slaves, also called the Israelites, and it is where we get the Ten Commandments in Mount Sinai. So the first six parshiot of the 11 tell that story. The last five parshiot of Exodus are totally different. And they're the detailed instructions for building the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the sanctuary that's in the desert that moves with the Israelites as they travel over the 40 years. And so, so the details in these five parshiot concern the construction of the tabernacle and also the instructions for the sacred vestments that Aaron and his sons will wear as they officiate at the in the tabernacle. So that's the setting, and so these last five parshiot deal with that, and they're repetitious. And so why is that? And it's because the first three parshiot give the instructions for building the sanctuary and for again, the sacred vestments. And the last two seem very repetitious of the first three. And that's because the first three are the instructions, and the last two are the actual building of the tabernacle. So, other things about these last five parshiot, Tetzaveh, which is the second of the five. One thing that's interesting about that is Moses' name does not appear in the entire parsha, and it's the only time in the last four of the five books of Moses where Moses' name is not mentioned. So that's just an interesting uh, thing to know. And the third of the five parshiot, Ki Tisa, that lists the holidays. And in each of the last four books of the five books of Moses, there's a list of the holidays. So the list of the holidays in Exodus is found in Ki Tisa, which is again the third of the last five parshiot. And then Vayechel, which is number four, that's very important because it mentions the Shabbat right before the work of building the tabernacle. And so that's why we know that we should not work on Shabbat, because Shabbat is mentioned, and then right away it talks about the building of the sanctuary. And because of that connection, those verses are one right after the other. That's why we should not do work on Shabbat. And what's interesting is, as we know, you can move a piano across a living room on Shabbat, and you would think that's work. But you can't turn a light switch on Shabbat, and you would think, well, that's not a lot of work. And so, what is the definition of the work that we can't do on Shabbat? It's related to the building of the sanctuary, which is creating something. So, the reason that we can't do certain things on Shabbat, which are called work, which doesn't seem like a lot of work, is because we're creating something. So, when we turn that light switch on, when we drive the car, we're making an electrical connection. And so anything, the connection is a creation. And anything that involves creation, those are the things that we can't do on Shabbat. So, and there are 39 called malachot. There are 39, a list of 39 major categories of things that we can't do. And again, they're related to creation and related to the building of the sanctuary. So that's the context of Pekudei, the context of where it fits in Exodus, and also where it fits in the last five parshiot. It's the last of the five parshiot, and it has to do again with the building, actually the building, not the instructions, but the building of the sanctuary and what Aaron and his sons should wear. So, if we turn to Pekudei, again in the Eitz Chaim, it's page 564, and the first verse, and rather we can read one thing in a little bit, but rather than just starting out by reading, just to go through the Parsha quickly. It starts with the term Pekudei means records. And so the idea here is that the sanctuary has been built, but we have to keep records of what was done. And the one teaching about that is that anything that we do that's important, we often keep records in our lives. Some things that we do, we just do during the course of a day and we don't make notes about it. But if we're doing something important or something that we know needs to be done that's important, often we'll make a record. And so it emphasizes, of course, the importance of following God's instructions to build the Mishkan. And then it talks about the gold that was used and the silver and the copper. And one thing I always like to think about that is that so much in Torah we can see in modern life. When Moses' father-in-law, Yitro, visited him after they were in the wilderness, and Moses was handling all the questions from all the people, their disputes and whatever they needed to know. They all lined up, and they lined up all day and night, and Moses, from all day till night, I think it says, and then Moses would answer everything. And Jethro said, Moses, this is not good. It's not good for you. You're going to wear yourself out, and it's not good for the people who have to stand in line all day. And he instructed him to appoint people that he had felt were trustworthy, and he outlined a structure of people that were in charge of a large number of people, and then with smaller numbers and smaller numbers. And that's our judicial system in modern times, that we have the lower courts and then the appellate courts and the Supreme Court. And actually Moses was told that anything that the lower that couldn't be adjudicated properly, that was too weighty, then they would bring that to Moses. But anyway, and that structure we see here with the gold, the silver, and the copper. The most important areas, like the Holy of Holies, the things that are there are in gold. And then the lesser important things are in silver. And then the very least important are in copper. Well, they're at least important in the sense that they're farther away from the Holy of Holies. So, the thing that's always of interest is that the gold, silver, and copper in that order of importance are the same thing we see in the modern day Olympics. Gold, silver, and bronze. Bronze is copper plus tin. So again, the order of, I guess you would say, the honor of the gold is paramount, and the honor of the gold medal is paramount, and the gold is in the Holy of Holies. So anyway, well, we also see that it says on page 565 that the number of people of men was 603,550 men. And and we always say how many people, I mean, sometimes they ask how many people were at Mount Sinai. And one beautiful concept is that every Jewish soul was at Mount Sinai when receiving the Torah. But often the number 600,000 men were there. And so what's just interesting is that actually, technically, it's not 600,000, it's 603,550. So, and it says it right in Torah. So let me see what else we can look at. Um, Oh, one beautiful thing, um, when describing the vestments that the high priest, that Aaron will wear, it describes the tunics and the ephod, the apron, but it also describes the headdress that Aaron will wear, and um, and so on page 567 it says, they made the frontlet for the holy diadem of pure gold, incised upon it the seal inscription, Holy to the Lord. So, in other words, in the front of Aaron's headdress were the words inscribed, Holy to the Lord. And what a magnificent thing for the high priest to be wearing. But what is also interesting is that it's one thing that I think we can take from this is that we should envision that on every person that we meet. So every person is holy to the Lord, and it shouldn't just be for Aaron. It should be for him, but it's how we really should view every single person. And we should know that we're wearing that as well to remember how much that we're holy to the Lord and how much God loves us. So
Richie,
yeah,
I have
yeah,
a
yeah.
question.
Please, please, please.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I have not read this very thoroughly, but when talking about the vestments and the headdress and everything, is this only worn in the Mishkan, do you think? It's not something that was worn all the time to say this is who I am and I am the lead, the high priest. Was it only for ceremonial reasons that it was worn, do you think?
That's my understanding. And in fact, there's a description somewhere where um, the Aaron has to, when he goes into the Holy of Holies, he has to change. In other words, as soon as he has to change what he's wearing to go into the Holy of Holies, and then when he comes out, he has to change into less, what'd you say, sacred.
Are there special people that had to do that made it for the high priest? It's like whoever, there's special people that write the Torah, were there special, I guess I hate to say women that would have to do this? I mean,
So that's a very important question because the answer to that is specifically stated in Torah. And let me see, I don't know if it's mentioned here in Pekudei, but just in the previous Parshiot, Betzalel, and as the head of the designing of not only the tabernacle but of the priestly garments. I always have trouble saying his name, but Oholivo. That's not exactly right, but anyway, I'll try to find it. But anyway, so Betzalel and his assistant with Oholiv, something like that.
It's like
They
a
bear-
holy.
yeah, yeah. If I find it, I can read it better. But anyway, um, let's see.
It's on 555,
Oh,
the
thanks.
last
Oh, great. Thanks.
the
Oh,
last line, first word.
oh, great. Gary, yeah. Oh, Holiav. Yes. Great. So he, thanks so much. That he's Bezalel's assistant, and what's beautiful about that is it when it talks about Bezalel, it says that he had. This is on 555, page 555, Exodus 35, 20, 31. Exodus 35:20, it says, Bezalel, God has endowed him with the divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge of every kind of craft. So that's why he was chosen to be the overseer of the construction and the of the Mishkan of the tabernacle.
Beverly, I think it's funny that you thought that maybe it was the women who did the sewing when some of the finest tailors are men and some of the finest chefs are men and things
Well,
that we think are women's work. Really, the men excel.
well, that's interesting. And what's interesting, as we know that the Torah is very male oriented, and we think it's because of the time, at that time. But just before what we just read is that in 35:25 it said, "And all the skilled women spun with their own hands." So it does, and just before that, in verse 35:22, it says, "Men and women, all whose hearts move them." Brought things for the construction. So there twice on this one page they mention the women, which are often, as we know, overlooked. The other thing that what we mentioned a few moments ago is that Betzalel has been endowed with the divine spirit of skill, ability, and knowledge of every kind of craft. And one thing we could take away from that is that we're often, and we should be, proud of our accomplishments in life. But we also have to be very thankful to God for what we've done, because here it says Bezalel was endowed with skill, ability, and knowledge. And so if we are able to accomplish something, we have to always remember that God gave us that skill, that ability, and knowledge. And yes, we can work hard to maximize the gifts that we're given, but we always have to remember that whatever we do and have ability, that's a gift from God. And so that's one of the things we can take away from that. So let's see. So if we want to, oh, one other thing here. Let's see, 569. Let me just get that. So this again is the last of the five parshas that talk about the building and now the completion of the sanctuary. So on 5, 6, 5, 6, 8, it says just verse 42. So it's 39, Exodus 39:42. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so the Israelites had done all the work. So it was completed. And when Moses saw that they had performed all the tasks as the Lord had commanded, so they had done, Moses blessed them. And that's a beautiful thing too, because um, we often hear, and not as much in Judaism, I think, as maybe um, in other religions, that people say, "God bless you." May God bless you. And so we think, well, wait a minute, should one of us be saying to someone else, "God bless you"? I mean, do we really have that ability to convey ourselves that God has blessed them? But we learn that we can, because it says Moses blessed them. So here's a human being blessing the Israelites. And so,
Richie,
yes, yeah.
I'm sorry. Good morning. Um, Maybe I slept through it, but I didn't realize that Moses had the power to bless people.
Right, either.
Well, no, I think that's a very legitimate question, and I would say that the answer might very well be no. But here right here in verse Exodus, let's see, let's get it right, 39:43, it says they had done everything, and Moses blessed them. So
Okay.
yeah, so the
Well,
Torah.
what about the priestly blessings at the end of the service? when our clergy blesses the congregation.
Yeah, that's a very good
And
point.
don't you bless your children, on Shabbat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Oh,
So
that's
still as, parents, you bless your children. So, yeah.
oh, that's wonderful. Yes, terrific. Great. Thanks so much for that. Um, good. So, and then just one other thing on 570. Um, yeah. So this just somewhat of interest that on Exodus 40, verse 15, and it says that the Aaron and his sons are anointed. And it says, this their anointing shall serve them for everlasting priesthood throughout the ages. So Aaron and his sons, then they're going to be priests throughout the ages. They're going to be Kohens throughout the ages. And that's why, excuse me, in modern times, that traditionally the first Aliyah, when the Torah is read by the Kohens. So, so this did last throughout the ages, just as it says here in Torah. But one interesting aside is that Pinchas, when he, in his rage, that Israelites were being, I guess, seduced maybe by the Moabite women, Pinchas then stabs um, an Israelite and a Moabite woman and kills them. God rewards Pinchas, who is a Kohen, a descendant of Aaron. He rewards him with a priesthood for all time. So interestingly enough, although it's said here with what we just read in Pekudei, it's actually God rewards the Kohens for being priests for going forward. So that's
Richie,
yes,
I have another question about the oils, because there's a lot of instances where people are anointed. And I'm wondering, the oil that was needed for the menorah had to be like a pure oil. Is it the same oil, do you think, that's used for anointing? And why oil?
yeah. So that's interesting. So
Right, the oil had to be made of a certain kind of olive, I believe.
yeah, I probably don't know the answer to your question. The whether the in the Chanukiah whether the oil is the same as the anointing oil. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
But wasn't there a menorah in the Mishkan?
Yeah, so that we can do that too, and I think we should because since these, as we said, these parshiot are telling us what is in the tabernacle. We should turn, if we turn back in Humash to page, for those of you that have it, if you have another Humash, like the Art Scroll also has a picture of the tabernacle and the tent of meeting. But on 1520 in the Eitz Chaim Humash, I think we should spend a minute looking at that because it's important, and that's what all the instructions are about. So if you look on page 1520, um, then there's a drawing at the top and then a picture at the bottom of the page. And if we look at the bottom of the page, we see the outline of the tabernacle. That's the big area. And then in the middle, or I guess to the side, to the west side, we see the tent of meeting, and it looks like a tent. And then also in front of the tent of meeting, or toward the east side, we see something called the laver, and that has water. That's the water that's used for cleaning the washing the hands and the feet of the officiant, which would be the Levites. And then further to the east, we see this little thing with the four little um, things sticking up, the horns sticking up, and that's the altar where the sacrifices were made. So the animal sacrifices would be brought into the tent of meeting, and they'd be sacrificed at the altar. Um, and the tent of meeting, then we can look at the top diagram, and we see that the tent of meeting, it's again in the sort of the left half of the picture, um, has um, has three as or two sections. The smaller section to the left is the Holy of Holies, and that's where the Ark of the Covenant is. That's uh, where the tablets um, uh, are, and some say that the that the tablets that Moses brought down from Mount Sinai, that they're there, and and the first set of tablets, which were shattered, it's taught that the shards are also in the ark. So it's the both sets of.
Richie, did they carry this with them?
Yes, yes, yes,
So
and
a lot of men to carry
oh, they had to disassemble it. Yeah,
it.
and there are instructions too, which we are not here in this parsha, but it's very detailed. Uh, the Levites would do the dissembling and the reassembling, and and the Kohathites, which are one of the groups of the Levites, um, they weren't even allowed to look at the holy objects. They could carry it, but they weren't permitted even to look at them. And I guess that's sort of a way of saying how sacred all these objects were. But anyway, that's the Holy of Holies. But then next to the Holy of Holies, before you get to the Holy of Holies, this is called the Holy Place, and there are three things that are there. There is the lampstand, and that's the menorah. And it's called the menorah because it has seven branches. For Hanukkah, we always called it, at least I've always called it the menorah, Hanukkah menorah. But technically, and in modern times, some people like to call it the Chanukiah because it has eight branches. So the menorah, technically, a menorah has seven branches because the menorah is what it was called in the tabernacle. And the menorah has seven branches, and the Chanukiah has eight branches. But I think I still like to call the Hanukkah a Chanukiah also a menorah.
Richie, it's interesting that the menorah that I'm looking on at page 1521, all
Yes,
even. It's not like there's a shamash. I'm
no,
wondering if the lighting process was different too. Would they all different spaces be lit at this, like in an order, as opposed to having a shamash that lights the others?
yes. And I think that's a distinction between the menorah and a Chanukiah. The Chanukiah, we know the detailed instructions about how that should be done with the shamash, but
So it represents the days of the week, the 7 days, I guess.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I have a question.
No, there's no, Judy, I'm not aware that there's an extra, candle that lights the others. And these were oil too, and the priest would light them. Um, and they and I'm not sure what the instructions or how they were to do that.
I have a question.
Yes. Uh-huh.
So I'm glad you said that we grew up calling it a menorah and now they call it a Hanukkah. Didn't we grow up saying Happy Hanukkah, Happy whatever the holiday for them, and now we say Chag Sameach? I feel like that was only a recent thing, or did I just sleep through that too?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. And the same thing, we always say Good Shabbos, and now we say Shabbat Shalom. So it's personal preference too.
The transition was most, not all, came from Eastern Europe. And so Good Shabbos was part of that type of language and that. And then I think when Israel became a state and we started to transit to Hebrew, rather away from the Yiddish, I'm talking about, then you went into Shabbat Shalom. I said just as an aside, when I went to Israel one time, and I said to my grandson, do you want me to buy you a yarmulke? And he said, what's a yarmulke? He was going to Schechter. And I said, He said, Grandma, that's a kippah. I didn't know what a kippah was when I was growing up. I did, so it was the transition from the Yiddish, which was half whatever, to the Hebrew. And as I said, I had to smile because, yeah, I knew what a kippah was, but I still say, oh, put the yarmulkes on. So it's my age, and I think that's what Stephanie is saying when you say Shabbat Shalom instead of Good Shabbos.
So Richie, I want to go back to something you said. For Aliyah, is that you're supposed to, like, the Kohanes are supposed to go first?
Yes, and the Levites second. Yes.
Like they
Now
don't
the
do that. We don't do that at Bethel. I mean, they can't
Right.
possibly.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, good. So anyway, we were saying in the holy place, so there's three things. There's the lampstand, which is the menorah, and then there's the table, it says here, and that's where for the bread, and then the altar of incense. So those are the three things that are there. Um, and so let's go back now for a moment we're getting near the end of the Parsha. And I thought this was interesting. Again, thinking of things that are maybe a little different than we always think of them. I always thought the description was that there was a cloud over the tabernacle during the day and a fire at night. And so it's a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. But what was really interesting here to read is that it says in page 572, so it's it's 40, verse 38. It says, over the tabernacle, a cloud of the Lord rested by day, and fire would appear in it by night. So that's interesting. So it's really a fire within the cloud. And I just thought that was interesting because it was a little bit different. And then it says the last phrase in Pekudei says, to continue where we're just reading, on page 572 at the very end, verse 40, 38. In the view of all the house of Israel throughout their journeys, and that means the cloud and the fire would appear. And so their journey. So how many times did the Israelites move? How many journeys were there? And so there were 42 times that they moved in the desert. And that sounds like a lot, but when you think about it, over 40 years to move 42 times really is not very much. And Rabbi Schwartz likes to emphasize that they were they didn't move all that much. They were they remained in one place for long periods of time. And then the last word of Pekudei is journeys. So Rabbi Schwartz teaches this. Let me see if I can get it. Let me see. It'll take me a minute. I wrote it down here, but I have to get it. Yes. So the last word in the book of Exodus is journeys. And Rabbi Schwartz likes to point out that the last word in the book of Genesis is Egypt. And the last word in Leviticus is Sinai. The last word in Numbers is Jericho. And the last word in Deuteronomy is Israel. So if we take those 5 words, they are Egypt, so that's the Exodus. Journeys, that's the wandering in the desert. Sinai, that's the receiving of the Torah. Jericho is right after we left Jericho to enter the promised land. And then the last word, Israel. The last word in Deuteronomy is Israel, the land of Israel. So Rabbi Schwartz teaches that really is the summary of all of Torah, those 5 words. So let's see. And then you'll see on page 572 that when we complete a book of Torah, we say chazak, chazak, v'nid chazek. And it's translated different ways, but one way is to be strong, and may we strengthen each other.
Good job.
And I love the paragraph on the bottom of 572 under the line. It says, our book began in darkness, concludes in the brilliant illumination of God's glory before the eyes of the entire house of Israel.
Hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. Hmm.
Wasn't Ruth
Beautiful.
Bader Ginsburg known for saying that? The chazak thing?
Oh, really? Oh,
I
wow.
feel like she was.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Richie, can you go back to what you said in the very beginning, about what you can do and not what you are not supposed to do on Shabbat?
Mhm.
And there's a whole list somewhere. Where is that list somewhere in
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So yeah, let me see. 1 second.
Because what you said about pushing a piano,
Yeah.
like I thought, like here, where I live, they made an Eruv, is that what it's called? And I
Yes.
thought it was like so the mothers could push their babies in their strollers, which they couldn't do before they made an Eruv.
That may be correct. I have to think about that. My understanding of the Arab has to do with carrying.
Oh, it's specific to
Not allowed. You're not allowed to
I think
carry
it was Carrie.
on
Richie, what book do you have in your hand?
except. I'm sorry.
What book do you have in your hand?
Right now, this thing. Oh, this is just some notes. My notes from Talmud class.
notebook.
And yeah, and
I
here
thought it's related to
Here,
care.
let me see. Here's the list. Here's the list of 39 malachot. And I was wondering where I got it from. So it's from, I think it's from this book once. But I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of places where you can find,
Okay.
but there are 39 malachot, 39 categories of work
Wow.
that one cannot do. Let me just see.
Categories, so there's stuff within them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There are a ton of subcategories to these 39. Yes.
Tell me, you can push a stroller, but in the beginning you said you can't do
Oh,
something that changes.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Create the builds.
right. But that's correct.
You
So
can't,
their Arab has to do, you can carry things within your home, but you can't carry things outside your home on Shabbat. So your personal space. So the idea is that the Arab,
is,
everything in the Arab is considered your personal space,
why
your
can't you carry it outside? Because it changes you said in the very beginning, like you can't turn on a light because it,
Yeah, and carrying. Let me just see if I'd have to look through the list real fast, but you can't. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here it is. Number 39. That forbidden things. Carrying from the private to the public domain. So
it's
you can't do that on
because it changes what
Shabbat.
you use the, it,
Yeah,
ch-
yeah. So it has to. I guess when doing the construction of the tabernacle, they had to carry things, so that's forbidden. And but I think one of the major concepts is creation. Anything that has to do with creation, creating something. Here they're creating the tabernacle. That
What's somebody put
he
up?
was
Here are the
creating.
categories that you were talking about.
oh,
I'm
I
showing
heard
on the screen.
Oh,
Googled that, Ellen? Eileen?
oh
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
You Googled that?
I Googled it and it came up, so that's what I'm just
Oh,
showing
yeah.
you.
Very
I heard
bottom on the very
change,
bottom on the left, the 39 categories. Go up a little bit. Go up a little bit, Eileen. Yeah, it says the 39. See where it says the 39 category.
Carrying, burning, extinguishing, finishing,
Yeah,
writing, erasing.
yeah.
because it changes, it's called work.
Oops,
Uh,
hold on.
I heard a woman one time teacher.
Here's all of them right here. Can you see that?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Thank you.
Mhm.
I heard a woman teacher one time explaining about the Arab, and she believed that one of the main reasons it was invented is so that the neighborhood could get together for a Shabbat meal, because otherwise everybody wanted to bring something and you couldn't bring some food from your home to somebody else's home. And within the Arab, everyone is welcome to share the Shabbat meal.
A nice way to think of it.
Yeah.
The book that my list is from is this is another excellent book called Exploring Jewish Tradition. It's by Whitty and Whitty, and it's a really good book if anyone is interested. Just has a lot of good things in it.
Exploring Jewish tradition.
It's called Exploring Jewish Tradition,
Okay.
and it's by Rabbi Abraham B. Whitty and Rachel J. Whitty, Witty. Exploring.
Could you hold it up?
Sure. It looks blurred when I'm holding it up. Is it blurred for you?
You got to get it in the right spot on the camera.
You have to
Oh,
move
is
it
that-
Because
back.
your background is blurred. That's why that's blurred.
I feel like I have that,
Oh, that's right. Maybe let me see if I can fix
have that book.
Yeah, if you go to video, it'll change it.
it. Thanks. Yeah, let me see here. Blur my background. I'll turn that off.
And then it should say none. There you go.
Oh, very good.
I feel like I have that book.
Yeah, it's very, very, very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for picking up the slack.
Oh,
My God.
Job.
my pleasure.